Good afternoon. My name is Ross. I represent CLN8, our company name, Grow Up. Joining me in my CLN is Jennifer, Stephanie, Saveline, Lachlan, and Tim. As you may recall, we came up with a business idea called Grow Up, a new business venture that incorporates sustainable agriculture and e-commerce training. After gaining and collating our initial feedback back from presentation 1, we would like to guide you through our refreshed business model for addressing the problem of getting business graduates to become greater advocates of producing high quality, low volume sustainable food supplies. As discussed in our first presentation, we have identified the below issues as part of the problem. Issues such as declining soil quality, the availability of land, high costs of resources for traditional farming are all problems current to the farming industry. Other issues, such as the reliance on heavy agricultural machinery, causing more soil degradation than traditional labor-intensive farming methods in aims of producing higher numbers of food production, is also impacting the industry. Externally to the industry, matters such as climate change have caused less favorable farming conditions, making farmers more reliant on artificial irrigation methods and fertilizers to produce the same quality crops. Evidently, large corporations are creating price monopolies and reducing competition on farming industry. In 2010, the US found that more than 60% of goods produced from farming were sold to 4 major retailers, limiting the opportunity for free trade and open competition. In addition, the cost of farming supplies are being driven up by these large corporations who are controlling a limited number of supplies, which leads to the potential loss of further profits for farmers. This leads to our final problem point, that younger graduates are more reluctant to enter these industries, particularly agriculture, where the trend for profits and business growth are declining due to these environmental and economic factors. We've found that the industry hubs for farming are a significant distance from urban cities, and farming is also considered a labor-intensive occupation and making it less attractive to younger generations. Our vision remains fairly similar to our initial vision in presentation 1. It is to distribute a sustainable food production means to the individual in a low-cost, low-maintenance manner. It is planned to be targeted at populations in highly urbanized destinations who may not have access to sustainable food sources. It is also targeted at those who are passionate at contributing to the sustainable living commitment in those areas. It is a business model that also capitalizes on business graduates using their skill sets to address these categories. The incorporation of prototyping is an issue that we did not address in detail in the first presentation. Essentially, as per the diagram, the idea of conceptual prototyping was used in the sense of taking an existing product proven for small-scale gardening and turning it into a vessel for sustainable food living in urbanized destinations. As per the diagram, the idea of economic viability and technical feasibility were met. However, matters such as the desirability of the product offered to market was something we had to address. In reviewing our conceptual prototyping, we began to identify design patterns in the marketplace from existing efforts highlighted in the sense of community around community gardens. We've identified this as a peer-to-peer pattern, allowing us to tailor our product offering to bringing like-minded people together to contribute, discuss, and educate in sustainable living, in addition to co-op trading. Journey mapping and design thinking discussions for commercial-based solutions were included in presentation 2 to further develop the idea behind our business model. We continued the research into the wicked problem and the availability of the solution on how we were going to incorporate it. The developing of a new BMC is based on the below ideology of continuous supply of vertical farming products to high destination and urban populations. From our initial presentation, the incorporation of design thinking changed our approach in regards to tackling the wicked problem. As you can see, we've used the 5-pillar approach of design thinking to readdress our thought process in tackling the problem. We know what the wicked problem is: how to encourage business graduates to become low volume, high quality, sustainable food producers for markets. The idea of design thinking really cements this and expands the idea of thinking in regards to how we were going to attack the wicked problem. Further to design thinking, we mapped out the importance versus cost of key aspects of the problem and solution. As you can see on the screen there, matters such as low cost and community focus have a high importance, whereas having a product that is marketable, fresh produce, and meets our goals of providing a co-op are something that fall more under the category of cost. The journey map created shows a path of a typical business graduate, highlighting roses as positive aspects, thorns, negatives, and buds as opportunities. The map follows the graduate as they travel to the big city to attend university, a positive, where they do experience some negatives. Things such as being away from friends and family and having to work at a job that is hard labor for usually low wages. There are opportunities, however, as they want to stay in urban areas and look to work opportunities in these areas. This is where vertical farming can also provide a real opportunity for a business graduate. As per our presentation one, we've incorporated our initial BMC. As you can see here, this is how we presented it without any particular changes or iterations. From our initial BMC, subsequent research and iterations, we have come up with a core assumption that there is a growing demand for cost-effective urban agriculture to meet the increasing needs of food production. Given the scale and size of the problem, there was not just one assumption that we created or that one could be relied on solely. As you can see on the screen, a further list of subsequent assumptions were derived. Matters such as peer-to-peer trading of perishable agricultural goods is feasible. Vertical farming assures a sustainable environment. Current food production solutions are not sustainable, and vertical farming techniques produce safe and nutritional and sound products. From the assumptions just discussed, a series of research questions were delineated. Whilst you can see quite a short list on your screen there, it's not to say that a number of other research questions weren't discussed and formulated, but we feel that these are the most prevalent regarding the wicked problem faced. Are consumers ready for urban agriculture? What is the role of contribution for business graduates? How does participation in schemes such as this impact on sustainability, quality, and the volume of food production? Will farming crops provide the same nutritional quality to that of traditional methods? Obviously, we don't have all the answers to these, so we turn to some external research. Pearson argues in 2010 that there is a global estimate of 15 to 20% of all food production occurring in the urban environment, a positive for Grow Up. Conversely, developing nations are also participating in urban agriculture schemes, primarily to negate their economic position. This has proven to be quite successful, in particular with women of a low socio-economic demographic. That is to say, women who don't have a lot of money can grow their own food to supply to the families for them to eat. Matters around basic logistics and the status quo of such an idea, whilst not entirely relevant to Grow Up being an individual solution, needed to be considered. Traditional methods of community garden have issues such as who gets it, who pays for it, where does it come from, are all relevant to this particular model. We all know that the idea of farming traditionally is not going to be sustainable forever. The cost of increasing supplies, the increase of land costs, and overall living expenses are going to increase, so a long-term viability in farming is not going to be possible. We also gave consideration to other inherent obstacles of urban farming, things like soil pH levels, toxicity of the air, and water quality. From a company perspective, we also looked at technical support and a limited exposure to, something that we had to give consideration to before going to market. We then looked at what role can business graduates play. The Royal Agricultural Society of England in 2012 determined that 60,000 new entrants to the agricultural industry with strong business backgrounds would be required over the next 10 years. In turn to this, schemes to farming and the offset of such would need to be implemented, but would still require people to relocate to rural areas. We then reviewed how can participation in a trading scheme impact. We looked at other industries that had a peer-to-peer trading scheme, primarily the idea of electricity in Western Australia came to the top of the list. It also, this idea localizes market for trade and provides an agreement where many users can share the electricity generated by renewable energy sources. The idea is based on relationships and partnerships. It is not compliance focused and therefore adaptable to the situation at hand. It provides privileges by doing with and doing it for. It harnesses networks of community relationships, leveraging latent social capital and a community-to-community experience. Now, looking into this, these are all values that we want to instill as part of our co-op trading scheme. This particular slide provides insight into the research methods and thinking types used in developing assumptions, research questions towards developing our research plan. With the assumptions made and the research questions generated, it turned to time to developing our research plan. We established that generally, consumers don't know enough about vertical farming technique and its ability to the creation of a sustainable environment. We also question, will consumers buy these products from vertical farming techniques if they know that there are no harmful chemicals as part of the process? And finally, how will we ensure that the products from vertical farming will meet the supply and demand standards? As part of the research plan, we will plan to release survey questions regarding queries such as consumers' knowledge and understanding of vertical farming, their willingness to buy the product of vertical farming, question their beliefs and understandings of vertical farming as a future alternative food supply, and whether vertical farming technology will reduce the impact on climate change. These questions will be circulated in supermarkets, train stations, schools, and universities as general urban hubs. Given the further development and planning understanding of the problem, we have come up with the revised value proposition to provide high-density urban agricultural systems and to deliver a platform for decentralized peer-to-peer trading of crops. Finally, given all these understandings and inclusions of information, you can see on slide 16 the iteration of our BMC and how it has improved in the journey from our initial understanding of the problem to a much more defined and unique situation that we're trying to tackle. This now concludes presentation 2 from CLN 8, Grow Up. On behalf of Tin, Lachlan, Steph, Jennifer, myself and Sableen, thank you for your time and we look forward to your feedback.